What's up, everyone? Tera Roberts here with Fantasy Alarm, and we are talking DFS bargains for week 2. Now let's go ahead and kick things off at quarterback. Carson Wentz went off last week against Jacksonville, 27 of 41 for 313 yards and 4 touchdowns, and a couple of interceptions, but whatever. And this week, Carson Wentz plays Detroit in a game that I can see creeping its way over the projected point total. Wentz is cheap, and despite a very productive week 1, he won't be an incredibly popular play if you're looking to get a bit different in GPP lineups. But I also like Marcus Mariota this week against the Rams. The Rams are likely going to rebound from a very poor week 1 performance against the Bills, but that's not necessarily a terrible thing for Mariota's fantasy production. If this defense rebounds, it forces Mariota to bail out of the pocket and rely on his legs. Mariota's rushing upside provides him a consistent floor that makes him a player who's only 1 or 2 touchdowns away from paying off well at his pricing. Now, bargain running backs aren't always the easiest to find because you want a deal, but you don't want to go crazy on deals and play Myles Gaskin just because he's cheap. That said, I'm going a little bit crazy, and it's not crazy on the price. He's $5,200 on DraftKings and $5,600 on FanDuel. It is crazy because it is a New England running back. Yes, I am going there. Despite his extremely underwhelming week 1 performance, Rhamondre Stevenson could be a sneaky play this week. Ty Montgomery is on IR. That opens up pass-catching work for Stevenson. But what is really tipping the scale for me is that the Patriots are playing Pittsburgh, a defense that just gave up 7 receptions on 9 targets and 63 yards to Joe Mixon. Stevenson would be a very risky play, but a very low-owned play that could pay off if he sees 5 or more targets. But the big obvious choice here is Jeff Wilson. The matchup is okay. San Francisco plays a Seattle team that gave up a combined 103 yards to Denver running backs. That's all right. But Wilson should be the clear lead back, as the only competition for him are 2 rookies that have yet to see an offensive snap. He is a solid choice at his pricing. At wide receiver, Greg Dortch won't exactly be a surprise, so this is likely going to be a chalky play, but it's a cheap, chalky play. Rondale Moore will not play on Sunday, meaning that Dortch will likely pay off again at his price point. Kyler Murray only completed 27 passes last week against a tough Kansas City defense, and 7 of those completions were to Dortch for 63 yards. Again, this will be a very popular play, but it allows you flexibility with big-name players. And if you want to go cheap and low-owned, Ashton Dulin is an interesting option. Dulin caught 3 of 6 targets for 46 yards last week. His snap count was very limited, but Alec Pierce is out with a concussion. Dulin could see a solid bump in snap count. Michael Pittman is also dealing with a quad injury, and Indianapolis is facing a Jacksonville defense that just gave up significant points to the number 2 and 3 receivers for Washington last week. And one more option at wide receiver, I'm kind of intrigued by Chase Claypool. George Pickens was the preseason monster, but he had a very quiet week 1. Claypool played 92% of snaps and caught 4 of his 6 targets for 18 yards, kind of pitiful. But he also had 6 carries for 36 yards. Najee Harris is fine and will play, but if the Steelers opt to throw some carries at Claypool to reduce that workload on Harris, Claypool will have multiple avenues to fantasy points and is a very low-priced option. And at tight end, Kylen Granson. Kylen Granson's week 1 wasn't spectacular, but his snap count was nearly identical to Mo Alley-Cox, and Granson saw 7 targets to 2 for Mo Alley-Cox, who has never been able to establish himself as a leading receiving tight end. If Granson can garner a similar target share, he can maybe be more productive with it, and he could pay off at his nearly bare minimum price point. But also at tight end, I'm kind of loving this week. Since I can't play Gerald Everett, I am feeling Hayden Hurst. Last week, Hurst caught 5 of his 8 targets for 46 yards with a 75% snap count. I think the opportunities will continue to be there for Hurst all season long. And Cincinnati plays Dallas, a team that is reeling after the loss of Dak Prescott. and it could provide Cincinnati with a very tilted time of possession since Dallas will likely struggle to sustain drives. So this could be a great option for him this week. Thank you for watching this week's DFS Bargains. Be sure to subscribe to Fantasy Alarm and come back next week for another round of DFS Bargains.